Hi, Vito. Thank you so much for helping with my project. Could you say a little bit about yourself?
Okay, well, let's see. I've been living in Houston since '72, originally from New York. I was born in Brooklyn in the '50s, and I've been interested in astronomy as a hobby since I was probably like 6 years old. In fact, I remember when I was like around 5 or 6, I drew a model of the solar system and hung it up on the kitchen wall. And then at the age of 10, I got a telescope. It was a small reflector. And I haven't really delved seriously into astronomy, but I've read books and I've actually observed Mars through a telescope, my own telescope, and I have a pair of binoculars. That old telescope I still have. My dream someday is to get something more elaborate, but I don't get around to that yet. But like I like the Celestron line, and there's some other nice telescopes. But I noticed that they've changed over the years and become easier to use and more trackable. Anyway, so my first college was State University of New York at Brockport. I was there, went for 1 year, and then I transferred to University of Houston. And I ended up with a degree in radio television, basically broadcast journalism. But I took a lot of electives in physics and calculus and astronomy and some engineering courses. So I have a technical background. So over the years, I've done things like instructional TV for like MW Kellogg. And then later on, I started working for National Oil Varco and ended up in their marketing department, producing marketing collateral like flyers, posters, brochures, presentations like the ones I'm helping John with. And then in 2015, they gently let me go. That it could, I guess that's the best way to put it. And I've been doing my own graphic design work, my own graphic design company ever since. A variety of top subjects, and some of them are STEM related, and some of them are like energy related. So that's what I'm currently doing with during the present day.
Well, that sounds really awesome. It sounds like you had an early interest in astronomy and space and what have you, but then you ended up going into sort of marketing, graphic design, broadcast television. Do you remember kind of like where maybe you had that decision point of either pursuing astronomy and science versus doing something else, and why you chose the direction that you did?
That's a good question. I was like 50, in my sophomore year, I was like 50-50. Should I go, actually it was in the engineering direction, which kind of covered, the science and astronomy, or should I pursue a more humanities related degree, basically, broadcast journalism. So actually, it's hard to remember exactly what I was thinking, but I decided to go the humanities route. And that's where I've been ever since. But I've always had that inkling to go back to school or study on my own, what I kind of left out. I think I have probably the equivalent of one or 2 years of pre-engineering, like from an associate degree, but it's not official. However, currently I'm studying, you know what an Arduino is probably, right?
Oh
Yeah,
yes.
yeah, yeah.
In fact, I have a Arduino right here on my desk.
Cool. I have an Arduino kit, and I'm starting to relearn. Uh, I know electronics already. I used to be a ham radio operator. I'm starting to relearn it using the Arduino, and I'm on like my fourth or fifth project with it, making diodes blink and change color, and now I'm going into like turning them into like transceivers, and then there's all kinds of module learning. So I bought it. Actually, it's a kit you can buy from Amazon. It's a knockoff of Arduino. It's called Elegoo, and it's about $40. It's pretty affordable. But I'm learning that gradually over time, and also I'm also using my marketing skills to learn my Adobe Creative Cloud. I'm starting to delve into the field of animations in addition to my other stuff. I do have a space animated related video. It's kind of amusing. It's very basic, but I will send you a link personally to you. I'll send a link to you later so you can look at it and comment and possibly laugh. If you're on Twitter, are you on Instagram?
I am. Yeah,
Okay.
I'm like Gadget Nate across the thing. But the thing that you might be really interested in is the ESP8266. You can program it just like the Arduino,
Okay.
but it's $7 and it has Wi-Fi built in.
ESP 82.
66.
82.
8266.
Okay.
Now, the one drawback about the ESP8266 is it only has one analog pin, but the ESP32, which is about the same price range,
Okay.
has a lot more analog pins. And in fact, the ESP32, there's a version of it that has a camera, uh, and you can have broadcast of Wi-Fi for like $7, $8.
Which one has the camera?
There, if you look for the ESP 32 cam,
Wow, that's cool.
yeah, I have some examples like that. But I mean, if you're interested in electronics, we could do all sorts of damage.
Okay, yeah, we could maybe some of them be astronomy related.
Absolutely, we could. I want to create something to track the moon and maybe satellites and what have you. Just kind of.
I have a feeling there's a sketch for that on GitHub somewhere.
Oh
I would think
yeah,
there's thousands of things updated. We'd have to do a search, and I think you're better at the presiding over it. You could like just give a shout during the early part of the meetings. And by the way, we have discovered this, and I have built it, or something like that, or intend to build it. Or here's a project. If anybody else has this Arduino, they can do it. But what do you think?
yeah, exactly. We could have like a little special interest group, work on some projects, and I mean, like one of our members was wanting to do a high altitude balloon, and we can take some of these with the cameras and some sensors and put it inside of a payload, have a high altitude balloon, and take it up. And another one of our members is talking about a set of CubeSats to kind of test out the rotational gravity, simulation,
Yeah.
and trying to see about if you could actually reduce some of the effects of weightlessness on like small animals. Kind of do like a comparison study, one in the middle of the spinning CubeSat with a tether. You wouldn't have that rotational centrifugal force, and you would have some animals there as a control. And then on the rotating outside limbs, you would have the other, a comparable setup. Then you would like observe the health and the longevity and what have you of these small animals, maybe fruit flies or whatever.
Give them some food so they can enjoy the ride.
Yeah, give give some fruit exactly. So
Cool.
that's awesome. So I, I kind of envision this project as being like a time capsule for a future generations who are looking back at the beginning of the new space age, of us really making that long sustained push into space. And so if you were talking to a future version of yourself between going the humanities and science side, um, what are some things that you would like for yourself, your future self, to consider? Like, I mean, what are some things that you're like, hey, think about this, or not so much saying that one side is the right way versus the other, but how do you find out what's the best fit for you individually?
Well, my short answer would be make that other road not taken a plan B, and keep it on the side instead of just like leaving it alone for like the rest of the your college year. Just kind of have it on the side, and after you get your degree, maybe get an associate's degree in the other one, or yeah, basically continue. I did continue education in other ways. I took some Microsoft certification courses and passed them. Uh, that was a plan B for mine about 10 years ago. I was studying while I was working. Don't tell anybody. But anyway, yeah. So it's always good to have a plan B. You never know. That would be my takeaway for that person, my future me or future anybody.
Well, and that's a very good point. Sometimes you're a much better candidate for anything having a unique background and a unique set of interests. Somebody that's purely focused on, say, mechanical engineering or writing or filmmaking, is not going to be as strong of a candidate as somebody who's combining all those things together.
Well, another interest of mine actually is zoology, and and I've done a lot of reading on that too. And so that I do not qualify to study like animals in the wild or anything, but when I watch the specials like on PBS or whatever, I think I know a little more than average about what they're doing. But I've studied taxonomy and and basically read a lot of astronomy books. I've done more reading actually during the 80s than I'm doing now because I had more time back then. But yeah, having a plan B or maybe like even a plan C. And that's the interesting thing about graphic design. I could approach anybody in any of these fields and do something for them because not only do I have the talent, but also I understand what they're talking about more than just like, yeah, I think I can draw that. But I know what they're talking about, so I could tweak it and kind of put myself in their construct momentarily and be able to extract the proper information and make the image look good.
Yeah, it seems like on any of those projects, you're always short on time. And uh, the fewer iterations you have to go through, the fewer questions you have to ask, the more higher value questions you ask, the better it turns out. So,
Very true. Very true. You read my mind.
so when did you find out that NASA was planning to go and send astronauts to the moon in 2024?
When did I learn that? I believe it was from you during one of your tweets. Yes, I don't keep up with the news as much as I used to because I'm busy in other areas. But when I saw that, you kept saying it. It's true. It's confirmed. We're going to the moon in 2024 or 26. Oh, great! That's awesome. Yeah, I found out through you.
You know, I've done over 250 interviews, and of them, only about 50 of the interviewees knew about it before I talked to them about
Okay, so I would be one of them.
it. Yeah, but I mean, one of the values of going back to the moon that people talk about is the inspiration that it inspire future generations and what have you. And how can something inspire if people don't know about it?
Right.
And what would it take for them to know about it?
Let's see. Well, the benefits of being there. Obviously, there are economic benefits of going to the moon. It is a harsh environment. Somebody who's extremely brave would be a better candidate to go than, let's say, the average person. I would think that the desire to explore and realize that the Earth is not we're not as ethnocentric as we think we are. And I think all this can be accomplished in time. It's not going to be a short run. It'll be evolving as we evolve in the proper direction, I hope.
Um, do you remember computers and communication and what the world of the internet was like in 1990?
Yes, it was rudimentary. Well, communications actually, we had the FCC and we had various forms of transmission and reception for the home. But yeah, I remember the internet being very basic and was very little. There was no flash video or flash animation. Websites were simple, but for us, they were awesome. They had games. The games were first-person shooters. There was kind of like a lot of things were pixelated. But yet, with all that, I could see that. I remember when I heard my first radio station through the internet. And at that time, they would tell you if they were 1440 kilohertz or 1228 or whatever. Now that's not an issue anymore. So if you want to extrapolate from the 90s to now, think ahead 10 years, what's going to happen? Nobody really knows. Nobody knows how far we're going to get and how easy it's going to be. It's going to be all pervasive. I think when you mentioned that Elon Musk was going to has a network of like thousands of satellites communicate. I didn't realize there were that many. And I believe that the internet is going to become more of a public thing than a private thing. I have a feeling that having to subscribe for internet service might actually start. I predict that it may not, you may have two alternatives, and perhaps that might actually be disruptive to the private enterprise internet access providers. What do you think?
I mean, I think definitely being able to have a worldwide provider that anybody can just go put a dish out in on top of their house or on top of their RV or what have you, and have high-speed internet access is going to be extremely enabling to those places that don't have access today, but extremely disruptive and damaging to existing players.
I agree. And actually, come to think of it, a dish may not even be necessary. I don't own one, but by any chance, do you or anyone you know own a satellite radio receiver, the handheld one?
Not a handheld one, no.
Yeah, because I don't think they use the satellite dish. It's like a radio. It's like a what we used to call transistor radio, but it picks up satellite broadcast. So maybe a dish may not even be necessary.
That would be awesome.
I know it will be all pervasive. There are great possibilities, and we'll see what happens. It says let's see what happens in 20 before 2030. I predict, maybe by 2025 we're going to see a lot of this going around, and then also the thing about robotics. This Alexa app, I have an Echo Dot. That may just be a rudimentary stage in what that could become. A network that could, help the person and track them from even like for medical reasons and astrophysical reasons. I mean, it just anybody, if they make an observation, they could just input it into Alexa's cloud, and that would go straight to NASA or Dr. Jha or whatever.
That would be awesome. So thinking out a little bit further than just like the next decade, if you look at humanity 500 years from now, what is your hope that we've become?
My hope is that, well, from a biblical standpoint, we may not be here anymore because the revelation may have taken place, but we don't know that for sure. I mean, you understand that. If it's farther off than that, then I would hope that we would become a world of peace and total cooperation and doing good completely and getting over our petty differences that are interfering with our ability to get to the truth.
Um, and just thinking about like the domain of humanity, do you think we're still mainly on the earth making these little short trips to places? Or do you think humanity's really expanded beyond the earth to create permanent self-sustaining colonies on the moon, on Mars, in free space, on the moons of Jupiter, on the moons of Saturn? Like how far has like the physical sphere of humanity kind of expanded?
I think 500 years from now, probably we will be colonizing uh, planets that are within our solar neighborhood. Maybe like if Alpha Centauri has an Earth-like planet that does it, I'm not sure. An exoplanet that's very Earth-like, not a super Earth, but something that's even better, closer to Earth than that. I think we probably would have settled on some of those. I don't know if it may take longer than 500 years to solve the time issue and the relativistic issue. I don't know if that's even possible. The ideas like we see in sci-fi movies about maneuvering through wormholes, that sounds like something that may take 500 to 1,000 years, in my opinion. So to be kind of conservative, I'd say probably we've had colonies, but we're still dealing with the large kind of like quarantine situation we have because we're so far away from each other. Yeah, I think it's going to take more than just several centuries to solve that, but I could be wrong.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting. You know, one way of going to another star system might be creating something called a generation ship, where it's essentially a self-contained environment where the people actually, have children and they have children, and it kind of like it's its own world. And one challenge with that I see is children very rarely actually follow the direction of their parents. And I just wondering, I could imagine having some type of revolution, once enough of the children get there, like, what are we doing going to this unproven place? Turn the ship around, let's get back. And I was wondering what you thought about that scenario.
Uh, there was a movie about akin to that. Do you remember it? It was like last year. It
Oh, is
had
it like Interstellar?
it wasn't Interstellar.
Oh, it
It
went in.
was the young man wakes up in a space colony, and then he wakes up the girl,
Yeah,
and
I remember that. I just can't remember the name of it. I
yeah,
did
me neither.
see it though.
But they were like the trip took 90 years to get something like 90 years to get to an Earth-like planet that was like a paradise. Um, I guess that's possible, but there's so many even like in the movie, the ship started to break down and they had to fix it. So that they possibly sent it out. Let's see, it was about 100 years from now, maybe. I think that's probably going to be too early. I think to have a generational shift, it's probably going to take, unless artificial intelligence speeds everything up really fast, which is possible, and other technologies that we haven't even thought of or are just in the uh, very, very earliest stages, could possibly get that done within 500 years. But things are happening so quickly, it's hard to say. But using the viewpoint that we have right now, our vantage point, that you're looking at something that could probably take 500 to 1,000 years to really get off the ground. Pardon the pun.
You just mentioned like artificial intelligence and what have you, and I just had this vision in my head about Earth selling ships, taking people from place to place, and you would have sort of like the rats and the mice would sneak aboard and go colonize these other places, unintentionally. And I was just kind of envisioning like AI starting to create ships by itself to send to other star systems to make sure that it continues to survive and to propagate, and humanity not being a primary passenger, but sort of, trying to latch on to get taken along for the ride.
Having, in other words, having the machines kind of like be our guide, for better for worse.
Yeah, the machines are doing their things, completely ignoring humanity, and humanity's trying to, uh, you know,
I don't think they would ignore us. I think it'd be like a symbiotic relationship, probably. But that's it's kind of a mind-boggling subject anyway. But it's interesting.
yeah. But I mean, you and I, we ignore creatures all the time. I mean, there's like probably thousands of entities that are alive within just, hundreds of feet of us that are just below our level of awareness.
Ants, yeah, like insects, microbes.
Yeah. And as long as they don't bug us, we're let do whatever you want.
That's true.
But then whenever they start bugging us, then we call in the exterminators. That's the event we got to avoid.
Yeah. Well, I think we all kind of have like a respect for our. It's like people have respect for their parents. I think machines would always have respect for their creators and always want to do the best for them, even when they don't know what's best for themselves. That's something you have to think about. Like okay, like this is a totally different realm, but it's happening now. I have a professional development consultant. Her name is Erin Urban. Maybe you've heard of her.
Mhm.
Uh, I'm following her on Instagram. When I start following you, I'll share. But she said that pretty soon, and be ready for it. AI is going to help you determine what type of job you're going to do, what type of career you're going to go into.
Wow.
Yeah, that's coming, and it's coming relatively soon. I mean, not for us. We were kind of fortunate. We grew up in a time we could decide, like I made the decision which way to go, this way or that. You probably did well. It'll come to the point where it'll be advised. And I even went to, even in college, early in college, I went to a specialist, a guidance counselor who actually showed these are the fields that you're good in. You could pick one, but it'll be in the future where you're going to have, it'll kind of like be predetermined what you are best doing and what you should take. And it may be something that will surprise you. And I'm glad I grew up in the, I probably too, glad that we've grown up in the time periods that enabled us to have the more freedom, because I think as time goes on, for practical reasons, freedom has to be restricted a little bit.
Well, and the people who came to North America, the vast majority of them didn't come here because North America uh, was such a wonderful place to go to. I think the majority of them came here because it was just simply where they were coming from was just, um, I mean, like Andrew Carnegie, as an example, I was reading about his life, um, and the biographer pointed out that they didn't come to North America because that was a better option. They came to North America because that's the only option, because Andrew Carnegie's father had bought on loan like 3 different looms, manual looms, at the time that like the automatic loom was coming out, and it completely ruined them in terms of where they were in Scotland. And I'm just wondering, you know, uh, if you ask Gwen Shotwell, would you go to Mars? Because SpaceX is planning to go to Mars, and she's the president of SpaceX, and she's like, no, I really don't think I would, because it'd be more like camping, and I'm not really into camping. And so I think going, these early settlements in space and just getting there and traveling is like a very uncomfortable, scary thing that nobody would really willingly sign up for.
It's
But
it's not, it won't. It sounds, it's exciting and a little fun, but you're right. It's a serious thing, but on the good side, you'll be so busy when you're there. You'll have a routine. You'll have to stick with it. I mean, there's very little leisure time up there, so that will keep you occupied while all this other stuff, like a dust storm, is all around you and all that. You'll be too busy, you know, doing whatever tasks you need to do just to keep the system going.
yeah,
There will be very very little playtime up there.
very little playtime. That's true. But I was wondering if this idea that freedom gets reduced, AI takes over, we have geopolitical issues, make people go, I realize space is dangerous and space is hard, but I much prefer to deal with the natural risks that I can understand and can, take action to guard against, as opposed to sort of like this human risk here on Earth that I don't feel like I'll ever be able to sufficiently protect myself against. If that's like the driver of those future space colonists.
Well, I'll say one thing: the space colonists in their travels will probably have it better off than the crew on Columbus's vessels, because the conditions there were, by today's standards, they were pretty awful. And yeah, he had workers for him that were on the lower echelons of the hierarchy, and they probably weren't fed very well. They probably were cramped quarters. They didn't care about health and nutrition and all that. Not that much. I believe that in space programs they do everything they can to make the astronauts comfortable and sustained. So
Hmm.
actually, we're better off traveling in that direction than our earliest explorers. Much better off.
Yeah, it's kind of funny though. Our lives have become so comfortable that for those people traveling at that time, it may have been hard, but they had hard lives before they got on the boat. Uh, you know, now we're like an AC with electricity, and
Yeah.
I'm talking to you over the internet, and you know,
Comfort has become a value, as before it was not. People were raised uncomfortably and didn't realize what they didn't have, but we know what we have, and when we lose it, like a power outage, it suddenly hits home.
exactly.
Yeah.
So if it was safe and affordable, would you go into space?
Safe and affordable? You mean guaranteed 100%?
Well, as safe as an airline, airline ride or maybe a trip to the office in the car. Those aren't 100% either, but I got a feeling you probably do them.
It would have to be better. It would have to be, the odds would have to be better than that, but it's a possibility. I can't say absolutely yes, but it would be possible.
And how far would you consider going? Just to orbit, suborbital, to the moon, maybe to Mars?
If such a scenario existed, it would be uh, far, and not so far enough so that I could not I would not leave my own time uh, timestamp. In other words, I wouldn't want to go so far into the future that when I came back, everybody I know would be gone, or far, if possible, into the past so far that it'd be before I existed. So no, it would have to be within a a, uh, a reasonable time limit. I think probably going on a generational ship would be out of the question.
But like a 2 or 3 year trip to Mars and back would be a consideration.
No comment.
No comment. That's awesome. Well, I really appreciate your time. Is there anything you wanted to talk about that we didn't get to?
Uh, no, I think we covered a lot of bases. I think you're doing a great job with this, with your chapter of the NSS. I did join the NSS. Yeah, I paid the fee for the national group, the NSS. There's so much stuff they offer, so many Zoom meetings and subject matter that it's a whole new world of people in there in those Zoom meetings. There's lots of them. It's a wide-in club. I regret that I don't have as much time to access all of them, but once in a while I will. And but all of all, I like yours the best because it's local and we know each other. And John too. John likes these too. And Rodrigo, he couldn't make it today, but he's really he's really turned on to it.
That's really awesome. I'm glad to hear that. Uh, yeah, I'm glad you're able to come, and I look forward to kind of um, figuring out some way we can explore the electronic angle together.
Okay, well, how do we start that? Let's email back and forth, and I'll tell you the progress I'm making and the stuff that I'm using. So eventually, maybe we could like make a. I don't know C++, but I know how to play with it a little bit. Maybe we could develop an idea or have an idea for a type of sketch and then find it already done on GitHub. I'm sure it's up there. They're all up there, like some like of telemetry or telescope guiding system sketch. It's probably already up there. I'm sure. I'm sure of it. Sound good?
Yeah, it sounds awesome. So we'll be in touch via email, and we'll set up maybe a time to talk about what we're doing. Um, help each other over some hurdles and stimulate each other with additional ideas.
Okay, that sounds good. I know we are probably both busy. I work remotely, and you probably have a job too, working remotely. So we can find small period of time now and then to do it. But I know that we both have big plates, and we'll just etch a little piece out of the plate for this.
That sounds good. Well, Vito, you have a good rest of your day,
You
and
too,
I
Nathan.
look forward to being in touch.
Yeah, me too. And happy Labor Day to you and yours. And same here.
Okay.
Right.
Bye bye then.
But take care. Enjoyed it. Thank you.